My name is Nick Heath, and I live in London in the UK, and I'm 76 years old, and I was born in Brighton, which is south of London on the coast. My family, my dad was a bank clerk all his life, and my mother, she was a typist, but when she got married, she became a housewife. Now, they always religiously voted Labour, and they were quite enlightened about things like, they wanted to abolish capital punishment and all that sort of thing. So I suppose I came from a sort of Labour background. We're talking about 1964, and there'd been what they called 13 years of Tory misrule. That was the term coined. The Conservative government, and the government of Harold Wilson, Labour government, was voted in. Now, I had I was I wouldn't have been, I would have been about 13, 14 or something like that, I think, when that Labour government came in, and I had high expectations about them, like a lot of people of my generation. And okay, they did a few cosmetic measures. They Labour governments often do, and then they settled down into what basically reactionary politics. So they legalised homosexuality, which was fine, and they they did some things, reforms on divorce, that sort of thing. So, but then they turned on striking workers. They turned on the seafarers, and Harold Wilson, um, it said they were led by a tightly knit group of politically motivated men. But mate, that sounds like a description of any government, really. Um, and so, as I said, I and many others sort of became more radical. I mean, you've got to remember this was a Labour government that was far to the left of any Labour government party politics that are around at the moment in Britain. So then I toyed with the idea of the Communist Party. Well, I was too young to join then, but I had an idea of communism, but I was uneasy about what I saw that existed in the so-called actually existing socialist societies, which weren't socialist at all. So around about 65, 66, I discovered some books in the public library about anarchism, and I read them. One of them was The Anarchist by I think it was The Anarchist by Roderick Kedward, and another one was Marx, Proudhon, and European Socialism by J. Hampton Jackson. Um, and I decided I was an anarchist communist. But I thought, the way a lot of these bourgeois histories of anarchism are written is as if anarchism stopped existing after the Spanish Civil War. There's no way. I thought, oh, I'm the only one. I thought, oh, well, I'm going to stick to these ideas anyway. I started going to meetings of youth CND. CND means Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, and I met up with other young people there. I mean, I've been invited to a meeting by someone I was working with. I had a weekend job, um, when I was at school. So I met somebody who was in the local youth CND. So I went along there. And then one of them, I remember his name, Tom Freeman, he's now dead. He showed me a copy of uh, Freedom, which was the British anarchist paper. At that point in time, it was a weekly. So, and I sent away for some of their pamphlets, and I and a few others set up anarchist group in Brighton in about 66, 67. So I was active in Brighton until 71 or 72 before I moved away. Obviously, my disillusionment with the Labour establishment, but also, I went to a Catholic school. It was run by this Catholic Brotherhood and very authoritarian. So I rebelled against that. So, I've always been anti-authority and for a society um, of equality. 2026, I will have celebrated 60 years as an anarchist communist militant. When I read about anarchism and specifically about anarchist communism, I thought that's exactly what I think. I believe in a communist society, where everything is shared in common. But as I said earlier, I had grave doubts about the authoritarian regimes in Eastern Europe and in China. So that it was when I read about it, when I read what people like Kropotkin and Malatesta had to say, I thought that's exactly what I think. It really hit home. I've been an anarchist communist for a very long time, and I intend to stay that way until I die, basically. My understanding of anarchist communism, is that it emerged in the 19th century as a movement, specifically with the development of the working class on a world level, basically, and it developed amongst advanced workers, and it emerged within the first international, the first proper international organisation of the working class. So, I mean, a lot of people, especially these bourgeois histories, they look towards people. Oh, they're anarchists, like Zeno or Carpocrates or even Jesus Christ, blah, 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 all of these people. But for me, anarchism emerged in the 19th century as a movement of the working class, you know, and all of these researches into various philosophers down through the centuries. They might be interesting to a certain extent, but they don't really sort of turn me on. The role of anarchists in contemporary society is to encourage people to self-organize, to create structures at a base at a base level, grassroots level, in order to confront capital and the state, to prepare for when we can overthrow capitalism, because it has to be overthrown. Because if it's not overthrown, um, it will lead to probably the eclipse of the human race and many of the other species on the planet. You can see that capitalism at the moment is in. Well, I think one of your other interviewees said it was a who was it? Wayne Price said it was a polycrisis. It is. It's a polycrisis, crisis on many different levels. An environmental crisis, stepping up again for, war after war after war. So barbarism, basically, attack austerity, cutting of public services, um, the rise of far right groups, increasing authoritarianism, and like I said, environmental disaster, and we can see it. I mean, today's weather, for example. You know, temperatures that we never used to have in Britain. I mean, and that's the case all around the world. So we need to be there to prepare our class to create a new society. I know it's going to be difficult, but there's no alternative. We've got to appeal to people's class interests, saying, why would you vote for someone who's a billionaire? Like we've got our own populist party over here, led by Nigel Farage. He's a millionaire, and most of his MPs, I think there's 5 of them. They're all wealthy people. So why would you, as a worker, vote for millionaires, billionaires? It's the same with Trump and Elon Musk. We appeal to people's class interests. And we have to be visible on the street. So that means being out there, selling our papers, putting our propaganda up. Putting us so that we're visible. Stickers everywhere. Putting over ideas. And we have to be involved. We have to be socially inserted. That's what we say. Be involved in local struggles. Whether it's the environment, whether it's fighting against the closure of a library or a youth centre, something like that. And we have to spread our ideas of libertarian organisation. Organising in a non-hierarchical way. If you look back at American history, I mean, wow, there was amazing class struggle going on. You had the industrial workers of the world. You had the Union of Russian Workers, which is quite large. You had all sorts of things going on. Even on another level, things like the Socialist Party, which was a mass party, with Eugene Debs and all that. Things are difficult at the moment, and also this idea that because you're a white collar worker, there's a myth another myth they've sold is that you're middle class, but you're still a wage slave. You've still got to sell your labour. So for me, there's no difference between blue collar workers and white collar workers. So that's one thing. I am encouraged, though. There's been. I was just reading about it. There's been 1,200 demonstrations last week involving 5 million people, I think, around the theme "No Kings," anti-Trump demonstrations. So that's a welcome sign. I think I don't want to dictate to anarchists in America at all, and I'm sure they're trying to do it as well. You've got to get involved in those movements. You've got to relate to those movements. You've got to relate to the Palestine solidarity demonstrations as well. All of those things. You got and be involved in any environmental campaign, and also be active in the workplace if you can. But I don't want to tell American anarchists what to do. I'm sure they'll come to those conclusions themselves. Well, it's going to be difficult. I mean, we face the same problems in Britain. We've got a Labour government. People voted Labour because they just wanted to get rid of the Tories. But I mean, this Labour government has proved to be is a very anti-working class. It's cut pensioners' benefits. It's done all sorts of things. It's been very authoritarian. It's been very repressive against the environmental movement. People just for thinking certain things have been sent down for 4 or 5 years. It's quite disturbing. And now that they're planning to ban a group called Palestine Action for taking direct action against the war effort, against RAF jets, Royal Air Force jets. Um, you, we have the same problem as you. With you, it's Democrats. It's so-called left Democrats. One of them is a wealthy millionaire and lawyer, and you know who I mean by that. Um, Over here, we've got Jeremy Corbyn. Who was in charge of the Labour Party for a while. He was a left social democrat. He's talking about creating a new social democratic grouping, so a Labour Party Mark II. But it's the same thing as is happening in America. So we've got to fight those ideas and say, you know, um, you can't rely on these people. They'll just tinker with the system. The thing is, you have to change the system completely. You have to create a new society if you want life to continue on the planet, if you want to fight against authoritarianism, if you want to fight against degrading living standards, all of those things. Now, obviously, it's a really, really tough fight. And it seems even tougher at the moment, as been for several decades. But, if you're an anarchist, um, you've always got hope, I think. And that is a very important um, motivator.